Hey guys, Dan here with your Connors review. This was the season finale episode. Season 2 of the Connors is in the books. It was called Bridge Over Troubled Connors. And in this one, we start where we left off last time with Dan dealing with the mortgage and the possible foreclosure on the house. So that portion of the story is Louise goes with him to the bank to see his old buddy, and he tries to work out a deal using some ham and using Louise's boobs as some possible bargaining chips, but his buddy's hands are tied. The bank's been taken over now by corporate, and they're kind of breathing down the buddy's neck, and he's just trying to stay afloat himself. So he tells Dan basically, look, there's nothing I can do. I want to help. My hands are tied, Dan. I can't help you. So Dan goes home kind of defeated, and it sort of ties into this plot with Darlene and Ben. So let's talk about that. Darlene and Ben last episode agreed that it is time to move in together, so they're going to do that. They're going to start looking for a place. So they bring the kids with them to look at some apartments, and they find one that they really like. They have sort of settled on it, and then they find out from Louise about Dan's money issues and want to help him. At first, Ben is not down with it. Look, we've been talking about doing this. You'll still have all these memories of what happened in this house, but if he loses the house, he loses the house, And it was a very emotional moment for Darlene because she was talking about, I last saw my mom in this house. I have all these great memories of this house. This is where I was born and raised, and da-da-da-da-da. So Dan comes back with a black eye, and Darlene asks him what's going on. He tried to go collect a debt that he was owed for a drywall job. The guy didn't really want to pay in full, so they started fighting about it. And Darlene reveals to him, look, we know about the house. Louise told us we want to help. And Ben steps right in, hero of the day here, and says, no, we want to do this. We're going to help. We're going to pay off the owed part of the mortgage, and then let us basically take over the mortgage essentially. But Dan's not going to hear it. He's being too proud. He said, forget it, I can do this. We'll figure it out. So that's basically all of that portion of the plot. And then we have a side plot with Emilio, and this has been sort of bandied about as well, with Becky and possibly marrying Emilio to keep him in the country, to get him well, he's not in the country now, but to get him back in the country, and to do it legally, so he can see his baby girl, Beverly Rose. So her and Jackie take a nice trip to the border to see Emilio in Mexico. It goes, pretty well. Becky is loving him seeing his daughter, and so she decides right then and there, like, do you want to get married? And let's figure this out. So she comes back, tells everybody. Everybody's like kind of horrified, like, oh my God, what are you doing? And then Emilio himself shows up. Not the plan. This is an illegal entry of the country on his part at this point in time. And Becky's like, dude, you can't be here. Like, you got to go. And then we close with Jackie with a little, funny tag scene. Jackie at the border, talking to people about their white privilege and their, taking over the race, what do you call that? Where you sort of are, I can't think of the term, but when you're sort of taking that appropriation, cultural appropriation, yes, brain fart there. So that's pretty much the whole episode. Everything was sort of based around that. We did see DJ and Mary briefly. They were babysitting, I guess, for a little bit, or DJ was running the restaurant. That's what it was, and so he was running the lunchbox while they were gone. So everybody was actually in this episode for once. First time since, I think, the live episode back in February. We've seen DJ a couple of times, but Mary, like last week DJ was in it, or maybe that was the week before, but Mary was not. No, last week neither of them were in it. But the week before DJ was at the poker game. We didn't see Mary. We haven't seen, I think, everybody in the whole cast since the live episode. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure. So that is how this episode went. I'll be honest, after a few weeks of really, really great episodes, I was hoping for a little more here. I didn't think it was nearly as funny as some of the recent episodes. I got a couple of laughs from John Goodman. I got a couple of laughs from both Ben and Darlene and that whole situation. The thing at the guy's apartment where the guy was there and talking about his bird that he lives with. I thought they were trying a little too hard for some comedy there that didn't quite land. Jackie was really, I mean, like, incomprehensibly off the wall tonight. She does explain that she downed 12 2-hour energy shots, so she'll be good to go to drive for 24 hours, which Darlene's like, that's not really how it works. They don't fire one after the other. They're in your system all at once. That seemed like a really broad joke, because obviously if you actually took 12 2-hour energy shots, I would have to imagine you might have a heart attack or die. And they sort of joke about how her heart's, pumping real loud. But, that just seemed like a broad joke that didn't live in reality. And then the tag scene at the end, look, tag scenes are sometimes not meant to be taken as canon of what's really happening. But, and it was kind of funny. But I don't know. For the end of the season, that's how we're ending the season, is Jackie, sort of admonishing people for cultural appropriation. I don't know. Story-wise, I liked where we were going. I like that Dan and Louise are together and officially a couple, and I like that she wants to help him. I like that, Darlene and Ben have decided to help him, even after, a little bit of a disagreement between them. Her kids, Mark and Harris, just did not seem into the idea at all of them moving into this apartment, just because they're like, look, we've heard this before. We thought we were going to move to Chicago with Ben before, and that didn't happen. So, they were in it very briefly, and I didn't love their scene. I didn't love their part of it. So, moving the storyline forward, I'm okay with Becky marrying Emilio to legalize him in the country so he can be with his daughter. I think that's fine, and it seems like a very Becky kind of thing to do. Sort of flying by the seat of her emotions more than her head. I know that's sort of two phrases I'm mixing together, but she has always really been one to go off her heart, and I think that was on display here. And I like Emilio as a character. I don't think we quite know him yet, but if this is really going to go through, maybe we'll get to know him in the third season. I don't know. What I'd like to see happen is for Louise to move in and be able to help out that way. She lives somewhere. I don't know if she has a house, though, of her own, or if she has an apartment. We saw her place. We saw her bedroom last week, but I don't know what her status is. She was just on the road for 3 months, playing with her band. So I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe it wasn't 3 months. But anyway, I don't know if somebody that's paying a mortgage every month can just kind of up and leave for a little bit to go gig on the road. So I don't know what her situation is, but I could see her moving in. I think that might be a little awkward at first for especially Darlene and Becky, who are still, as of right now anyway, living there. But I think they're certainly not going to get rid of the house. Look, the house is one of the most iconic things about the show. I mean, it's almost a character unto itself, especially like with the blanket on the couch, that classic blanket. So obviously they're not going to lose the house. They're going to figure something out. But does that mean Ben is going to move in to the house? He stated that he doesn't want to do that, but maybe that's one way to go about it. Or maybe Darlene and Ben will just take over the house, and Dan will actually move out and move in with Louise. And, Becky will live there with the baby. Ben and Darlene will live there with their kids. DJ and Mary, who knows? They must have a place of their own because they don't live there. So I could see that happening in Season 3 as well. Season 3, by the way, has not been officially confirmed, but I mean, there's no reason not to renew the show when the ratings are so extraordinary like they are. Especially with Modern Family gone. I know I've said this before on these videos, but Modern Family is the #1 comedy of all on ABC. But in the 18 to 49 demo, it is The Conners, and this was Modern Family's last season anyway. So that makes The Conners just far and away any age group the #1 sitcom on ABC. So they're not gonna not renew it for Season 3. It's just not been announced yet. But so that's sort of where I'd like to see the story go. But for this episode, I was disappointed for a season finale, especially because we'd gotten so many good episodes, not just this whole season, but just recently. I mean, the last few have been real solid between really funny jokes and also good plot development, moving some things forward. So this was written and directed by two Roseanne and Connor's mainstays. Well, at least the director, Gail Mancuso. I mean, she's been a part of the Roseanne family since the 90s for sure. And then Emily Wilson, I'm not super familiar with her history with the Conners, but she wrote this episode, and she also wrote the best episode of the Conners or Roseanne Season 10, Slappy Holidays, which was the Thanksgiving episode where Darlene and Jackie really get into it. I gave that episode an A+. So the fact that she was the writer on this episode too, and this is the first one she's written since that episode, I really expected something more out of it. I said this last week that I wish there would be more episodes for the season. I don't want it to end. I don't want it to be on break for 4 to 6 to however many months once Hollywood gets back into production. It's hard to tell when the fall season will even begin. Usually it's like the 2nd to 3rd week of September, but with Hollywood being shut down right now, I don't know. We may not get new episodes for our favorite shows until 2021. I have no clue. But 20 episodes, even though it was a gift, since last season was only 11 episodes, 20 episodes is not enough. I want this family every single week, even on summer break. So it was disappointing to me to end on this sort of a note. The Becky and Emilio stuff, I didn't, even with Aunt Jackie being, so whacked out and stuff, I didn't find any of it funny. A little bit maybe in the tag scene where she was, talking to people that were coming back into the U.S., but other than that, that wasn't really a rib tickler. The scene at the apartment where, Darlene and Ben met the dude with the bird, like I said, that really, I think, fell kind of flat comedy-wise. And just a lot of just weird, sort of broad humor in this episode between the energy drinks and the bird that the dude lived with. It just was like, I don't know. The Conners are so steeped in reality. Why are we so getting off the page here? The very real stuff with Dan and Louise and the bank and the house and all that. And that I found to be great. And I thought, those were also funny scenes as well when they needed to be. So those parts were great. The rest of the episode I was disappointed with, especially for a season finale. The fact that this will be the last new episode for months, to me, is a bit of a bummer. So I'm going to leave this particular episode with a B-. It might be the worst episode of the season. It's hard to say that because we've definitely had some ups and downs this season, but just the fact that this is the season finale, this is what they want to leave us with, it was disappointing. So let's talk about the season as a whole as we go through, because like I said, this is the finale. So let's talk about the entire season 2. I'm not going to go episode by episode. I'm not going to give the grades again for the episodes. You can watch my other videos for that. But overall, this proved to me this season why The Conners is the best of all of the reboots. And I am including Roseanne Season 10 as a separate entity. I have enjoyed the Will and Grace reboot. I think it took a little time to get started. The first maybe 5 or 6 episodes wasn't quite hitting. But by the end of that first reboot season of Will and Grace, I mean, there were some really great episodes in there. And then Season 2 had a lot of real good ones as well. I'll be honest, I haven't watched any yet of Season 3. I wanted to get a little bit of distance from the backstage antics of Megan Mullally and Deborah Messing kind of hating each other. I didn't want it to sour me when I watched the episode, so I haven't seen Season 3 yet. But the Murphy Brown reboot I thought was very disappointing. Full House, I didn't like the first go-around, so I certainly didn't like Fuller House. There have been some good ones without the original cast, like the One Day at a Time reboot I really like. But to me, it is a reboot, I guess, but it's more of a maybe reimagining, or they sort of lump reboot into like anything that's ever been on before. We call it a reboot now if it's being done, whether it's the same cast or not, whether it's in the same city or not, whether it's the same premise, or not. Like Party of Five, when they did that this year, which I liked. It's already been canceled, but it's a completely different family, but the concept is the same. A lot like One Day at a Time, really. So I don't know how I feel about calling those reboots in the same vein as The Conners and Will and Grace, but Roseanne Season 10 was pretty solid. I can't deny that, and I loved that you all were on the journey with me going through the episodes of Season 10. But The Conners it breathed an entirely new life into the series and to these characters. Roseanne Season 10 was a lot of, just more nostalgia than anything, I think. It certainly was funny. There were a lot of funny episodes. There were some not-so-great episodes, too. But it was more of an extension of, okay, let's just kind of catch up, look in on these people, see what they're doing 20 years later. But The Conners just basically hit the ground running with what Roseanne was originally. The great plot lines, the very, very wonderful comedy and drama mix that we have come to expect from this brand and from this family. And personally, I think I've made it known that Lisa Goranson, I thought, hit some stumbling blocks acting-wise in Roseanne Season 10, but by probably midway through Season 1 of The Conners, I thought she was right on the money. And here, Season 2, I mean, she is right up there with everybody else. John Goodman, Laurie Metcalf, Sarah Gilbert, and the wonderful Lisa Goranson. And Season 2 gave us a lot more Ben, which he is one of my favorite characters on the show by this point. I mean, he's so great. He fits right in with this cast, and he is such a great verbal sparring partner for Darlene. He really. I'm so glad they've upped his episode numbers. I said this in the comments last week, but I would love to see him be a named person in the opening credits. I know that's not going to happen, because even in the original Roseanne, people that were on every single episode, like Johnny Galecki, never got their name in the opening credits. So, all right, that's fine. But I do want to see more of him, and Season 2 gave us more of him. Unfortunately, I think we had less Mark in this season. Harris, probably about the same, because she was absent for a few episodes, but we also had a couple of major plot lines revolving around her. Certainly the move out of the house with Odessa, the selling of the drugs in the season premiere, the episode where her and Darlene worked together, the episode where her and Mark got in the fight, the live episode. So, Harris, love her or hate her, I think even her detractors have acknowledged on the comments on my videos that you guys are sort of coming around on Harris as well. I never disliked her as much as a lot of you, but I do admit that this season she's really come into her own as a character as well. The whole thing with Odessa and Harris moving out, I think gave us a few new layers of her. Originally I was kind of like, Becky sort of did this already back in the original with her boyfriend Mark, but it came back around, and in the live episode where she got into it with Mark about leaving, it was handled so well, because I was just like, why are they sweeping this under the rug? Like, they need to talk about this in their lives so we, the audience, can see it. Because I kept feeling like I was missing something, and sure enough, they did a great job of handling it once she came back to the house. The love triangle thing with Ben and David at the beginning of the season was great. I could have used a couple more episodes with Johnny Galecki. I really could have. And I know I've pointed this out the last few episodes. I don't understand, with Big Bang Theory being over, I don't understand why they wouldn't want him back for another couple of episodes. I mean, not even for Darlene's sake, but, he is Mark and Harris's father. I know he's been kind of a deadbeat. That's the whole point of his character at this time. But I would have liked to see him, if nothing else, I don't know, take the kids out for a day, and, then he gets into it with Darlene or whatever, or with Dan, or who knows. But I would have liked to see Johnny Galecki a little bit more. But I love Ben so much that it almost doesn't matter, But I loved the stuff with the Lanford lunchbox. That whole plot between, Grandma Bev's money and, restarting the lunchbox, and then not being able maybe to open on time, and then, having some issues with how it's going, and Beverly sort of throwing that back later in Darlene's face, that she didn't want her money spent like that. I mean, that whole thing, and that caused the slap at Thanksgiving in the first place. I mean, that whole plot was just a stroke of genius, and it was like feeling like being back at home. The set was recreated almost perfectly with the lunchbox. That was great, and it brought everything to a whole nother level, of familiarity, because there were so many changes in season one. Obviously Roseanne being dead was the main one, and season one we evoked a lot of Roseanne, which makes sense, and I said that at the time. Look, your family matriarch dies, and she's going to be brought up a lot, and in these people's lives that makes total sense. But as we got into season two, I would say maybe half the episodes or so probably referenced her still. Just the other day we talked about Roseanne being the last person that Dan slept with, and the only person for a long time, because I think the plot where he cheated on her in the original run in season 9, I think that doesn't exist in the real world now. They haven't addressed that, but I mean, I don't think that was real. In the Connors land now. It's hard to it's hard to even explain that, but you guys are Connors watchers, so I think you know what I mean. But we evoked her there. We evoked her here when Darlene said in the finale that this was the last time I ever saw my mom. So she has been evoked probably in still at least half of the episodes, but it's dwindling down, and again, not that they're ever going to forget her presence. She's the wife, she's the mother, she's the sister. Fine, that's makes sense. But I love all of the directions that they're taking things with season 2. The Emilio Becky stuff, I don't know. I mean, it's cool. I'd like to get to know Emilio more, I guess. But at the same time, I think I'd rather get to know Ed Jr. more. Like, we saw him briefly last week at the poker game, which is cool. But I'd like to see him come around more in season 3, because I thought that was a really interesting plot line too, that they spent two full episodes on basically, but then it was sort of dropped, and we still don't know what happened to Crystal. We still don't know where the sister is. So there's still certainly some questions that could be answered in that arena. But I loved that they brought that up as a plot point in season 2 as well. And it's just funny. I think, I mean, really, other than, I'm trying to think, all the shows that I currently watch of the comedy variety, whether it's, in front of a studio audience or not, I think the only one that can compete in terms of, like, laughs per minute or laughs per episode is probably Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I'm really trying to think. I mean, I think there's some shows that are, like, cute. Like, Young Sheldon's a cute show. I don't know how much I belly laugh at that show, though. Certainly sometimes, but, same with the Goldbergs. Like, the Goldbergs can be funny, although now it's getting a little long in the tooth. I think it's in season 7 or something. But other than Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I can't think of a show that even comes close to making me laugh the way that The Conners does. And with rich laughs, too, not just sort of a chuckle here or there. And that's partially, of course, due to how well I know these characters. They can get away with lines and turns of phrases that other shows might not be able to, because I don't know the characters as well as I know these guys. So maybe that's part of it. But, for my money, it is the strongest comedy show on television. I'm trying to think of even things I watch on, like, Netflix or Hulu. I just did a season 1 review of Dead to Me, since season 2 is coming up. I just recorded that with my friend Melissa. But that's, it's a very, very brilliantly written show, but it's not a traditional comedy. It's not full of belly laughs, that's for sure. It's a very, very dark comedy at most. So yeah, Santa Clarita Diet I really liked, but that's not on anymore. So yeah, this and Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I think, are the shows that make me laugh the hardest and the most per episode, for sure. And I want to see more of that. I wish we ended on a better note with the finale, but overall, for the season 2 season 2 Conners overview, see, I bring up Roseanne too all the time. But no, this was a great season. They did so many great plot lines with it. The Becky Emilio thing's the only thing I'm sort of like, whatever about. And anything with Jackie. Jackie, other than the Lanford Lunchbox, didn't have a ton of major plots this season. They did the throuple thing with Jennifer Grey and Clark Gregg, and that was okay. I certainly laughed a bit. In terms of the long-standing, like, what plot lines will I remember from the Conners? Is it going to be Jackie and her throuple? Probably not. But it was good for a few laughs in the 2 episodes we had with it. But I would say Jackie was much better as a side character this season. She came in, got a few laughs, bounced. I think maybe certainly in season 10 of Roseanne, and I think a little bit in season 1 of the Conners too. We focused a lot on her, doing the self-help stuff and things with her mother and this and that. Here, I think it's okay that we didn't give her a ton of plots this season, because she is always great for comic relief. And, would I like to see her more in season 3? Of course. I'm never going to say no to more Laurie Metcalf, but I think the greatest plotline of the whole season was the lunchbox. And second, I would say, was probably Dan and Louise. Although Mark's, I guess just Mark as a person, Mark's sexuality, Mark at school. I don't think they explored it nearly enough this season, but the episodes we did get with Mark being front and center were all great. But yeah, the Dan and Louise plot is probably my second favorite, I guess, overall. The Becky Emilio stuff, it's okay. I like that we met the Tias a few weeks ago, so we see a little bit of Emilio's extended family. But yeah, I mean, the lunchbox is probably the best plot of the season, and that involved really all of the main people. I mean, it was Becky and Jackie that wanted to do it. They needed to get money from Darlene, and then Dan was sort of caught in the middle of his two daughters fighting about it. So, and it brought Estelle Parsons in as Grandma Bev. So, for me that was a top notch plot. Overall, I think this was an excellent season. I think because a couple of the episodes were more in that B range, and certainly the finale did not wow me. But overall, I thought this was a very solid season for the Connors. I would probably give it an A minus overall, which is, if memory serves, right about where last season was, I think. But last season they only had 11 episodes. I mean, I always like to give credit where credit's due. If you're doing, a season with 8 episodes or 10 episodes compared to a season with 20 episodes, I sort of expect that not all 20 are going to be lightning in a bottle, So for almost double the amount of episodes, I think they did a fantastic job. And this season just left me wanting more and more and more, especially, as I've said, with a bit of a lackluster finale. But that's going to do it for The Connor Season 2. Thank you so much for watching. As always, guys, I love hearing from you in the comments. And I've been doing a quarantine video every single day. This is, I think, actually day 50. I'll have to look. But I think this marks day 50 of the quarantine. So for the last 50 days, I've posted videos every single day on my channel. So if you haven't delved into some of those, please do if you like my commentary. I do a wide variety of things. I mean, I've been doing my weekly TV news and reviews show since September, long before the quarantine started. But so that is still continuing. I've been doing movie reviews since the quarantine. I've been continuing my Masked Singer recaps, and then just random kind of one-off reviews. Like I reviewed the Parks and Recreation reunion special last week. I did a video where I showed off my cats to everybody. So, it sucks that we won't have the Connors to talk about for the next, I don't know how many months. I really hope it's 4. I mean, I feel like even if they can get Hollywood up and running and shows being recorded, even if it's not necessarily in front of a live studio audience, I don't mind if they do a laugh track for the first few episodes, whatever. But even if they get it up and running like July or August, I would imagine they could have an episode or 2 on the air in September. So, fingers crossed, let's hope that we're going to have new Connors material in just a few months. But thank you so much for joining me for the season and for this review. Comment below. I always love to hear from you guys. And that'll do it. Thanks so much. Be safe. Bye.